Who hasn't, like, daydreamed about a life totally free from taxes? Like, picture it. All the money you work so hard for, it just stays put, right where it belongs with you.
Right.
No more wrestling with those confusing tax forms or worrying that you missed some, like, hidden deduction somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a pretty tempting thought, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But is it even possible, or is it just a total fantasy? That's exactly what we're diving into today. We found this YouTube video. It's called How to Legally Pay Zero Taxes Anywhere.
Catchy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's from this channel, Nomad Capitalist. And, well, let's just say they're making some pretty bold claims.
It definitely gets your attention.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of living tax-free, it's a powerful one. But like most things, the reality is a little more complicated. International tax law, it's like a tangled mess, you know what I mean? And finding a straight answer is about as rare as, well, I don't know, winning a lottery.
For sure. For sure. And honestly, I'm coming into this with a healthy amount of skepticism,
Yeah, yeah. So the video, it jumps right into this whole, what I'm calling the citizenship myth.
Mm.
They're basically saying that if you just change your citizenship, even suggesting places like St. Lucia, where you can get citizenship through investment, that's like your magic get-out-of-taxes-free card. It just, I don't know, it seems a little too easy, doesn't it?
It does, and that's because it usually is.
Right.
You see, the video, it kind of skips over a really important difference. Citizenship. That's not the same thing as tax residency.
Okay.
Most countries, they base their tax system on where you actually live and work, so your tax residency, not just what passport you have in your pocket.
Got it. So just getting a new passport, that's not going to magically wipe away your tax obligations. What are some other things that, like, people often misunderstand or maybe just completely overlook?
Well, a lot of people, they get tripped up by how residency is actually determined.
Okay.
The video, it talks about that 183-day rule, which, like, as you know, says if you stay less than 6 months in a country, you're not supposed to be on their tax hook. Right.
But while that's like a common benchmark, it's not a universal rule, and definitely not in more developed countries.
Right. And the video host, they mentioned living in Colombia, they've got a place there, but they don't pay full taxes. Is that because of this 183-day rule?
Well, it might be a factor, but it's not that simple. Countries, especially in Europe, they've got these complex rules. It goes way beyond just like how many days you're physically there.
Really?
Yeah. Owning a car, having a permanent address, even just having a significant other in a country, all that can actually influence your tax residency.
Wait, so you're telling me just having a partner in a country could mean you're on the hook for taxes there? Seriously?
It might seem a little intense, I know.
Yeah.
But these rules, they're there to prevent people from, like, being really connected to a country, using its resources, all without contributing their fair share.
Okay, so it's all about balance, right? Making sure that people who are benefiting from the system are also contributing to it.
You got it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, so if just bouncing around for less than 6 months isn't some foolproof plan, what about this trifecta method they talk about? They're basically advocating for spending 4 months in 3 different tax-friendly countries, claiming this keeps you from being a resident anywhere.
On paper, it sounds amazing, like the ultimate digital nomad dream, right?
Right.
The problem is living in that constant state of flux. It's tough, especially when you're trying to do normal things with, like, banks and stuff.
Like what, you mean opening an account or something?
Yeah, imagine trying to open a bank account or get a loan when you don't actually have a stable tax residency.
Right.
It's going to raise a lot of eyebrows, even if it's technically legal.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you're trying to play a board game, but you keep changing the rules every 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Right. Like, yeah, you could try, but it's not going to be very fun, and you're probably not going to win.
And on top of that, let's not forget, like, the human side of things. Moving every few months, that gets exhausting.
Yeah, I bet.
Even the video host admits it's not something you can do forever. Eventually, even they settled down a bit, found a more permanent spot.
Right. It's tough to be on the go all the time.
Yeah, it shows how, like, the fantasy of being totally tax-free, it kind of ignores the real world, you know?
Right, right. Okay, so the trifecta method, maybe not the magic bullet it claims to be, but does that mean a completely tax-free life is totally impossible? Or are there other, like, legal ways people can at least try to reduce how much they're paying?
Well, it's definitely way harder than some folks make it seem, that's for sure. But impossible. Not necessarily. The key is really understanding all the ins and outs of international tax law and how all those rules, they actually apply to your situation.
You're right. You're right. And actually, that makes me think, it seems like the video, it focuses so much on where you can go to optimize your taxes, but it kind of glosses over the what kind of income you're actually making. Could that open up more opportunities? Maybe, regardless of where you are in the world.
You're spot on. That's something that's like becoming more and more relevant these days.
Right.
See, the video, it's mostly talking about more traditional ways of making money. But now, with so much remote work, online businesses, and even like cryptocurrency and stuff, it adds a whole other level of, well, complexity to taxes, but also potentially a lot more possibilities.
So let's say someone's making money purely from their laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Are they stuck with the same tax rules as someone who's, running a traditional brick and mortar business?
Not always. It's not as clear-cut as it used to be. Like that old location, location, location thing for taxes, it's not so simple anymore.
Right, right.
Some countries are starting to catch on to this whole digital nomad thing. They're even creating tax policies specifically for remote workers, offering special visas, tax breaks, you name it. They want to attract these mobile professionals, so they're making it worth their while.
That's wild. So it's not just about finding a tax-friendly country to live in anymore. It's about understanding how the kind of work you do and where that income is coming from that can totally impact how much you owe in taxes.
Bingo.
Mm.
We're seeing a shift now towards something called source-based taxation for certain types of income.
Source-based taxation. All right.
Yeah, so like, let's say you're a freelancer selling digital products online. The tax laws in the country where your customers are, those might actually be more important than where you're physically located, even if you're a resident somewhere else.
Wow, okay. This is starting to get kind of complicated. Sounds like we're moving away from those one-size-fits-all solutions and more into a world where everyone needs their own tax strategy.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to think strategically about your income and your residency,
Yeah.
from a global perspective.
Right.
It's not just about filling out some forms once a year and calling it a day.
Yeah.
It's about being proactive,
Yeah.
structuring your life, your business, in a way that actually helps you with your taxes. It might even mean, like, incorporating your business in a specific country, or maybe even setting up different income streams on purpose just to take advantage of, like, tax treaties and benefits.
Right, right. Trying to work the system legally, of course.
Yeah.
So it's clear this whole thing with international taxation, especially now with everyone making money online, it's a lot more than just doing a quick Google search and thinking you've got it figured out.
100%. This is where having an expert on your side is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Finding a tax advisor who really knows the ins and outs of international taxes, that can be invaluable.
For sure.
Because tax laws, they change all the time, and what worked for one person might not fly for you.
Right.
A professional that can help you make sense of it all, minimize your taxes legally and ethically, and most importantly, make sure you're not going to get in trouble with the tax man.
Okay, so even if going totally tax-free might be a fantasy for most of us, there are ways to, legally optimize your taxes, potentially hang on to a bigger chunk of your hard-earned cash.
You got it. It's not about finding loopholes or trying to cheat the system. It's about understanding the rules of the game and making smart decisions that match up with your goals.
Okay.
And remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to something as complex as international taxes.
Well said. Well said. Now, before we wrap up this whole deep dive into international taxation, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. You were talking about those special visas for digital nomads and remote workers. Can you tell us a bit more about those? Like, what are some of the more, appealing options out there? And are there any catches? Okay, I get it. So let's say, for example, we've got this freelance writer. They're working remotely from, a beach in Bali.
Right.
How would all of this, tax optimization stuff, how would it actually work for them?
Perfect example. So first things first, we got to figure out their tax residency.
Okay.
Now, Bali might sound like paradise,
Right.
right? But Indonesia, they have their own tax laws. And if our writer is spending a lot of time there, they could be considered a resident for tax purposes.
Got it. So working from paradise doesn't automatically equal a tax-free life. What are some options then for our nomadic writer? Could they, just hop around every few months to avoid becoming a resident anywhere?
Well, it's definitely tempting, but remember that strategy, it comes with all those logistical headaches we talked about.
Right. The
Right.
banking, the visas.
Exactly. And not to mention, constantly being on the move, it can be tough, just to feel settled, have some stability.
For sure.
Mhm.
It's not as simple as just packing your laptop and jumping on a plane every few months.
Not at all. But our writer, they do have a few options. They could look into establishing tax residency in a country that uses something called territorial taxation.
Okay, territorial taxation, what's that?
Basically, it means you're only taxed on the income you make within that specific country. It doesn't matter where you're living the rest of the time. Or they could explore those special visas for remote workers we were talking about. A lot of countries offer tax breaks and incentives as part of the deal. They want to attract talented people like our writer.
Right. So even if you're earning money entirely online, the where still matters. It's just maybe not in the traditional sense.
Exactly. And here's where the what of their income, being a freelance writer, that adds a whole other layer.
Okay. How so?
Well, they're probably getting paid by clients from all over the place, right?
Right.
That's where source-based taxation could come into play.
Right. Right. You were explaining that earlier.
Exactly. Some countries might try to tax a portion of their income based on where those clients are located, even if our writer is never physically in that country.
Wow. Okay. So now we're talking about like juggling multiple tax systems at the same time, residency rules, different types of income. It's a lot to keep track of.
It definitely highlights why it's so important to be strategic about your income and where you're a resident.
Right.
This isn't just a once-a-year thing when you file your taxes.
Right.
It's about being proactive, setting up your life and your business in a way that actually benefits you when it comes to taxes.
Okay.
It might even mean incorporating your business in a specific country or creating different streams of income. All strategically, of course, to take advantage of tax treaties and benefits.
Right. Working the system legally, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds like we've moved way beyond those simple solutions. It's like everyone needs a personalized tax strategy now.
You got it.
This isn't something you just figure out with a quick Google search.
You said it. This is where getting professional help can be a game changer.
Yeah.
Finding a really good tax advisor, one who specializes in international taxes, that's invaluable.
Right.
They can help you make sense of all this, understand your options, and come up with a plan that works for your specific situation and goals.
This has been incredibly eye-opening, honestly. It's clear that trying to live a completely tax-free life, it's way more complicated than a lot of people realize. And there's definitely no one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah,
Especially now, when people can earn money from anywhere in the world.
absolutely. But the good news is, with the right information and the right guidance, you can navigate this whole thing. You can create a life that works for you, both personally and financially.
Couldn't agree more. It all comes down to being informed, talking to the experts, and making smart decisions. And just to be clear, we're not talking about evading taxes here. We're talking about legally optimizing your situation.
Well said. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of international taxation. We covered a lot today. We talked about those tax-free living myths, and we dug into all the complexities of earning income in this digital age. Hopefully you're feeling a little more empowered, like you can actually take control of your own tax situation. And remember, this isn't about finding some magic shortcut. It's about making informed choices that align with your values and goals. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.